Hey everybody, I'm Joe. We're talking about the Marvel Multiverse game today, and we are doing another character build. Here we go. I had my first request from a viewer for a specific character build when I did the bodybuilder just a little while ago, and it was to build a character that used predominantly the power control power set, arguably the hardest to use power set in the game. The reason this is such a difficult power set to use is that it is unpredictable. By its nature, you are grabbing or copying or dampening or stealing powers from the people around you, meaning everybody who plays a character in this power set is going to have a different experience. And in fact, you will have a different experience every single combat that you use this power set. That means that this is an exciting power set to use, but it is also, in all likelihood, an advanced build. What I mean by that is you need to be able to grab a new power, understand it, even if you've never used it before, and use it in combat immediately without slowing down gameplay time, which is difficult to do. But if you can do that, if you can understand the mechanics of a new power immediately and then put them to use, this is a power set that always will provide something new and fun for you to play with. So the question before us is, how can we take this character and augment them so that they become really fun and really exciting at the table? And also, how can we augment them so that they have the defensive capabilities and also additional utility that is going to allow them to be a robust character in the game? I'm not that good at naming my characters, so if you have an idea, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below, but I will be calling this character the Life Drinker. As we get started, we need to pick an occupation, and for the first time, I think I'm going to pick something kind of dark and seedy. This is a character that will be able to shut down, or at least dampen, the powers of a target, of an enemy, and then use their own skills against them. That's a very dark type of character, and I think the assassin occupation pairs very nicely with it. The assassin occupation is exactly what it sounds like, and it has all of the exciting world building and RP and kind of character development concepts that come along with it, but mechanically it provides two traits. The first trait is connections for criminals specifically, and this is just wonderful. The connections trait gives you the ability to have characters in the world that you can go to if you need to learn information, find side quests, or be able to drive the story forward. It is the connections trait that allows you to have a player-driven story as opposed to a narrator-driven story, and I think it's just wonderful. The second trait is signature attack. Now, importantly, signature attack specifically tells us that you can choose this trait multiple times, but each time must be with a different attack or power, which is good for us because we will be taking it multiple times. Right away, we need to pick a power that requires an attack or some kind of offensive maneuver, and we automatically get an edge when we utilize this power. Spoiler alert, it is going to be for dampen power, but we'll get to that in a minute. As far as origin goes, there really is no mechanical choice that is significant here, but I would choose Inhuman. I think that it provides reasons for our powers, it provides reasons for our occupation, and I think that it creates an interesting web of characters that we would be connected to with our connections trait. As we get into point buy, we actually have some very difficult decisions to make. And I'm going to give you my variation, but depending on your party composition, you might do something totally different. And it all has to do with the interaction of copy ability and the ways that certain things are actually calculated. We will be taking the copy ability power at level 1 here, and we'll explore it in a minute, but specifically we get to pick another character within range and copy one ability that they have. Remember, your abilities are your melee, your agility, etc. Those are your abilities. So let me actually read this power to you. The character picks one ability score of another character within 10 spaces and duplicates it. They now use that ability score in place of their own. this, by my reading, is for all calculations. So if we needed a good melee score, we could simply have a teammate with a really good melee score and copy it, hold concentration, and we would have a good melee score. But what does this do when it interacts with other calculations? Well, let me tell you what I'm on about here. Here's the way that health is calculated, word for word from the core rulebook. To calculate a character's health, multiply their resilience by 30. The minimum is 10 health, even if the character's resilience is less than 1. Example, Spider-Man's resilience is 3, multiply that by 30 to determine his health, which is 90. Now, if I have copied the resilience of another character, have I not then also changed my own hit points? The same would be true of copying vigilance and having a different focus amount. By my reading, the answer is yes, but this is not specifically discussed in the power set. Now, if I was to copy the resilience score of another character and have a new hit point maximum, a new hit point total, if I take damage, that still will eventually count against my own. For instance, if I have 90 hit points, but I copy the resilience of a teammate with 120 hit points, I will have that number of hit points. I take 70 damage and I would be at 50. When I drop concentration, I immediately go to 20 hit points because I have not been able to simply assume that that damage doesn't count. There's nothing in the wording that would indicate that that would happen. So if I had 120 hit points because I have copied the resilience of another character, and I take 110, but then I drop concentration, my normal hit point maximum being 90, I should go unconscious by my reading of the ruling. And this is the kind of possibility I would discuss with my team before using that ability and going into combat. But it means that as I do ability point buy, I'm probably going to be slightly dumping or at least de-emphasizing whatever ability I can steal from a teammate reliably. So as I get into point buy here, I am assuming that I'll be able to grab a better melee score, potentially, than my teammates, and I am not going to be emphasizing it. On the other hand, I will be emphasizing my ego, my vigilance, and as a tertiary stat, my resilience. Let's get into that. The thing about the power control power set is it always makes ego-based attacks. If I want anything to work, I have to use an ego-based attack. So I will be taking ego and maxing it, and I will be taking the discipline powers. Secondly, everything in the power control power set is an expenditure of focus, and it usually is a situation where I have to spend the maximum amount of focus of the powers that I am interacting with, and that means 15 points of focus minimum or more. This is a focus-hungry power set, and as a result, I need to max my vigilance. So my primary stat is ego, my second is vigilance. Even if I can copy the resilience of another character, I don't want to rely on that, so my tertiary stat needs to be resilience for this character. Lastly, for reasons that will become clear when we get into rank 3 and above, I need my melee score to be pretty good. And so the original version of this character was putting a lot of points into agility and dumping melee because this character oftentimes works from range, but there are reasons why I need my melee to actually be pretty good. So my fourth stat is melee. If you are in a situation where you can steal hit points reliably from another character and not melee, you might bump your melee stat rather than resilience, but I find it weird on any character having resilience be my fourth highest stat. So that's the direction I'll be going with this character. All of that said, I'm going to start off by taking a -4 modifier in my agility. Remember, I can copy the agility stat of another character if I need to, and so I don't have a problem really taking a penalty on one of my stats in order to be able to maximize my vigilance and my ego as early as possible, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I am going to have 1 point into melee and -4 in agility, 2 points into resilience, 2 points into vigilance, and 4 points into ego, maxing out ego initially, and I will always keep ego maxed. Because of powers I will be taking, my defenses are going to be 11 for melee and agility, 12s for resilience and vigilance, and 14s for ego and logic. The first power I'm going to take is one we've already talked about, and that is copy ability. I simply find another character and copy an ability. I've spoken already about how this works, but I'd like to point out something important. The target does not need to be willing, and there's no role associated. With this power set, if I am copying something that I see from another character, I do not need to roll to make it happen. I only need to roll an ego check if I'm using a power that is going to have a detriment to my enemies. But if I see an enemy with an incredibly high melee stat, I can simply copy it. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. It is baked into the class and the power that some things just work. And that's awesome. The next power we are going to take is going to be Dampen Power. We pick a target and then we make an ego check. Upon a success, we pick one power and dampen it. Dampening a power means that its range and its duration is halved. It has a -1 to damage multiplication from that power, and it cannot benefit from fantastic success. That is awesome. We also are going to have an edge on the ego check because we got that from a trait. So right up front, we're going to be able to point at the biggest enemy, find whatever their nastiest thing is, and just dial it down a notch. It's awesome. The next power we're going to take is going to be Brawling. Brawling is going to allow us to use our melee defense as our agility defense, which is why our agility defense was pretty good just a moment ago. The next power we're going to take is Wisdom, which allows us to use our ego defense for our logic defense. We're never bumping logic on this character, and so we're just going to leave that at a 0 and allow our ego to be our defense there. So that should be fine. The trait we're going to take is Situational Awareness. Now, Situational Awareness gives you an edge on your initiative check. Remember, in this game, you roll Vigilance in order to have an initiative order. That's really important because this is a very high vigilance character. And for a character that is ostensibly a support and a battlefield controller, we want to go as early as possible. Battlefield controllers who go at the beginning of initiative order can take the biggest, baddest target and simply cripple them and win the combat before it really even begins, which is awesome. Situational awareness doubles down on this capacity. It is very difficult to actually describe combat with this character. After all, I don't know what powers I'm going to be using. I don't know how much damage I'm going to do with them. I only know that if I steal an ego-based power, it's going to feed into my natural proclivities. But being able to simply dampen powers or eventually being able to boost the powers of our allies is enormously beneficial. I will not be calculating damage for this character. But right away here at rank 1, in combat, we're going to find the nastiest enemy and we're going to dampen their powers. We can only concentrate on one power at a time. So that's about all that we can do with this character. We're going to rely on our teammates to actually do the mopping up. Like any good support or buff or debuff character, we're not the ones who end the fight. We just cripple the enemy. At rank 2, I need to go into our second power set. And so we are going to be picking up our utility and secondary power set at this rank. And there's going to be a lot of important decisions that are connected to that. But of course, first, let's do point buy. We are going to cap our ego at a 5, bring vigilance to a 4, resilience to a 3, and melee to a 2. This is going to give us defenses of 12 for melee and agility, 13 for resilience, 14 for vigilance, and 15 for ego and logic. So with this character, we have a lot of difficult decisions to make. I certainly could go down the route of just taking sturdy powers and reducing the damage that comes in through damage reduction. That would be a completely valid way to go, but that would eat up 4 powers. Is there a way that I can make this character more robust, or at least more difficult to seriously harm on the battlefield than taking 4 powers of sturdy or shield bearer or something like that? There are other ways of being difficult to actually injure, and making sure that you are hard to hit is one of them, which is why we are putting a lot of energy into a lot of our defenses in this character. The melee and agility defenses are the only ones that will be lacking, but we have ways of being able to steal a melee ability score and increase our melee and agility defenses. What I want is a power set that I can go into that will give me utility, so it's usable in other avenues of the game, but gives me the ability to have significant defensive capacities. And we have options there. The first one you might think of is phasing. Phasing is possibly the best defensive power set in the game, becoming incorporeal as a reaction. And making yourself essentially impervious to all damage is really good. But this will limit your ability to do damage to someone else. And yeah, we can drop our phasing and go back into it, but in the end, it's going to give us some utility and might be a good way to go for this character, but I don't think it's right for me. I want to remain able to damage my enemies, particularly since I will need to be able to grab and touch them starting at rank 3. You might then think that elemental control would be a good power set to go into, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you. The ability to grab elemental protection or elemental barrier and being able to throw up a shield as a reaction is great and will save your life, and it would be a good way to go. And if I also wanted a power set that gave me more of an attack ability, I would probably go into it and I would grab elemental controls, I would grab the ability to defend myself, and I'd have a complete package. But I don't need to grab any attack powers on this character. I can clone powers at will from anybody around me, enemies or allies alike. And going into elemental control, if I don't want the attack abilities, is a little bit of an expensive proposition. Here's what I mean by this. In order to grab any defensive powers, I need to be 3 powers deep into elemental control, and the rest of the power set is going to be combat oriented. As a result, this is a pretty expensive proposition if I only need 1 power. And the rest of the power set, to me, I want to be utility. I want this to be something I can use outside of combat, because inside of combat, I'll be able to clone the powers of the people around me, as you will see starting at this rank, and I'll be able to simply grab more powerful stuff as levels progress. So this is a pretty expensive power set to go into when I don't need a lot of the things offered. What I'm looking for is something that will give me the ability to defend myself, will give me utility, and ideally does not cost focus. The elemental protection powers cost focus, and the more powerful those protective barriers are, the more focus you spend. I want to have a power that does not cost focus, does not require concentration, and will allow me to defend myself without the sturdy powers. And I think the best out there is going to be teleportation. The teleportation power set has, of course, an enormous amount of utility. A lot of the things in it do not require focus, though the higher level ones do. Most of the things inside of here do not require concentration, and our concentration is spoken for with the actual powers that we're going to be stealing and grabbing as we move forward with this character. And so I don't want to rely on concentration on my utility or secondary power set. But the teleportation power set is going to give us an enormous amount of capacity, and I think it's just going to be a fun way to create a really robust character. Also, a lot of the powers interact with movement for their action economy, not your action. And this is key for us. So let's get into the blink power. The blink power allows you to teleport a number of squares away that is equal to your rank. So it's a very small amount of distances right away at first rank, but at second rank you can move 10 feet, and that'll give you some utility, which is nice, and it's going to level up with us. What we really care about is the action economy of blink. Blink has an action of either your action, your movement, or a reaction. As an action, you can teleport a number of spaces away that is equal to your rank, and that's fine. But on your turn, you very well might want to use this as your movement. So instead of moving on your turn, you can blink a number of spaces away equal to your blink power and still have your action for something else, meaning we can use one of our power control powers and then blink away. And honestly, that's great. But the real power of blink is going to be that it can be a reaction. When you are targeted with an attack, you can blink away. If you are still within range of the attack, which is going to happen at lower ranks, then that attack at least has trouble. But you can blink far enough away that the attack simply misses altogether. And that's how we're planning on using blink most of the time. The next power we're going to take is Bump Power. You choose a particular target that is within 5 spaces from you and pick one power they have and you boost it. A boosted power is the opposite of a dampened power. So the duration and the range is going to be doubled. It has a +1 to its damage multiplier. It's pretty much the only way in the game that damage multipliers can stack. And then every single roll benefits from the effects of a fantastic success. Basically, you work out beforehand whoever your heaviest hitter is, and you just take whatever their favorite attack is and you boost it, and they get a fantastic success with every single attack. It's amazing. As we will see with most of the powers that we are interacting with, this is going to cost focus. In our case, it's 5 focus or more. Basically, whatever the minimum focus is of the power we are boosting, we have to pay that amount. If it has no focus requirement, we still have to pay 5 focus in order to bump it. The next power we're going to take is Copy Power. This requires our concentration and has 5 points of focus as the cost. We find a target that is within 10 spaces of us and find one power that they have and copy it as if it had always been ours. This has some interesting rules interactions. The target does not need to be willing, and if it is an enemy, we still do not have to roll. Being able to simply copy a power requires no roll whatsoever. We spend 5 points of focus and it's ours. It's as simple as that, which is pretty amazing. There's no roll associated here. The other interaction has to do with prerequisites. Copy Power allows us to grab one power that an enemy has and it is now ours, and the only requirement for us to use it is that we pay its focus cost. That's it. So this will allow you at rank 2 to grab powers that are available to only rank 3 or 4 characters traditionally. Now, most of the time, game masters are going to put higher level enemies in front of their heroes than the heroes are in order to pose an adequate challenge. As a result, you will regularly see enemies of higher rank. And that means this power gets better in boss battles. You can simply grab powers that you as a rank 2 character should not have access to. Now this aspect of the power drops off by about rank 4, but that's exactly when the insanely powerful stuff in the power set actually comes online, meaning this power set regularly hits far above its weight class, which is awesome. The next power we're going to take is Discipline 1. This is going to give us a +1 damage multiplier to any attack that happens using Ego, and it is going to give us a +1 to any Ego check that is made outside of combat, which is nice. Here's the interesting thing about Discipline. This is really only going to interact if we copy or steal a power that is using Ego as the attack stat. Because when we actually use a copy power or a steal power eventually, we don't do damage. We simply have that new ability. So you might not take Discipline at all on this character. It's actually totally possible. But if you do, then your attacks with the powers you steal are simply going to not be as effective. And since we are an Ego-based character anyway, all of the rolls for the power control power set are Ego-based, we might as well boost up our Ego abilities so that if we have to choose what power we are snagging or which power we decide to choose from an enemy, we choose ones that are Ego-based and we get a little bit more mileage out of them. The trait we're going to take at this rank is Combat Reflexes. This gives us an extra reaction every single round of combat. Of course, I'm going to be using this for Blink. Now I have 2 attacks that can come at me every single round of combat, and I can just skip them. I can just teleport right away from them. At the moment, that's going to get me 10 feet away, which has limited utility outside of combat, but 10 feet is enough for most attacks to simply miss. The only time that this is really not going to get me far enough away is an area of effect like an explosion, or if a very large creature with a large reach, 10 feet or more, is actually swinging to hit me. And so there's a lot of times when 10 feet will save your life. Let's go ahead and do point buy for rank 3. We're going to bring Ego to a 6, Vigilance to a 6, and Resilience to a 5. Our melee is still sitting at a 2. And since we're probably picking up melee powers as often as Ego powers, I feel a little bit bad about that. But we can always copy a ability if we want to. We're going to have defenses of 12 for melee and agility, 15 for resilience, and 16s for everything else. Now at rank 3, I need a new power set, and it's kind of annoying that I need it. I really don't want to go into a new power set, but I feel that I have to. You're going to see why, but to explain it, I need to explain the swipe power that we are taking right now. The power control power set allows for 3 things: being able to just copy something onto ourselves, being able to dampen something someone else can do, or being able to steal something someone else can do. When we steal, they can no longer use this power or set of powers, and we can. Each one of these works at different distances. If I am copying a power, I can be farther away. If I'm dampening, I have to be a little bit closer. But if I am stealing, I must be able to touch my target, at least briefly. And the different distances are actually a really important part of the power set, and it's why adding mobility is so crucial to this character, because a lot of the things that I do are based on distance, and I would like to be far away from the action. But if I am going to swipe power or eventually steal powers, I need to be up close and personal. What I want to do is be able to, after I use some of my powers that need to be up close, teleport farther back. Swipe power is going to cost 10 points of focus minimum, potentially more. It requires our concentration. It can be used as an action or a reaction, and it is triggered as a reaction when we have grabbed or grappled a particular target. There are a lot of powers in the game that work like this. They require us to actually make a grapple check and grab somebody in order to then use our reaction or an action on our next turn to utilize the power. And this makes them intentionally harder to use. The ability to resize other, to teleport other, those all require this same grapple and then reaction ability. And it's intentionally harder to use. And it means we need to be able to grapple. But let's deal with swipe power first. We make an ego-based attack against our target that is grabbed. Remember, grabbed is the version of grappled in Marvel Multiverse. Upon a success, we pick one power and we steal it. We can use it, our target cannot, until our concentration is broken. Now, we must spend 10 points of focus, but if the power has a focus cost higher than 10, we have to pay the higher amount, and when we want to use the power, we have to spend focus as normal. This is an insanely powerful thing to be able to do. So to simply shut down the big thing that our enemy wants to do is amazing. And as a narrator, I have the big gun that I want to pull out against my heroes. And for my players to be able to steal that and use it against me, it's awesome. I'm happy when you pull it off. It's really incredible, and I have to totally change the way that I do in counterbalancing if this is on the table, but it does require a grapple check. Please remember the way that grabbing works in this game. If you want to grab or grapple somebody and impose the grabbed condition, you make a melee check against the target's melee defense. If you succeed, you have grabbed them. Upon a fantastic success, they are pinned. We don't care about being pinned, we just need to grab them, because if we have, then we are able to use our reaction to swipe a power. But this requires a melee check. This is why this character is melee based. The original version of this character was agility based because I wanted to work exclusively from range. But if you want to swipe powers, you must grab somebody, and grabbing requires a melee check. That is why we've been slowly building that up, and it's also why I need a new power set. There is no way through traits to be able to give yourself an edge on the grab action check. The ability to grab somebody as an action. We just don't have a way of boosting that capacity outside of simply making our melee score better, which we can sum it up at will if we have a target with a really high melee score. But I want to make this check even better. So if I want an edge on a grab action check, the reality of the situation is I need to be able to take a trait that is going to impose an edge. But the problem is the only one is signature attack. And signature attack requires that this be an attack or a power. So is there a power that is going to be a grapple check? And there is, it's grappling technique. The benefit is that grappling technique has no prerequisites, but the downside is that grappling technique is in the martial arts power set. So you see where this is going. We are going into the martial arts power set for exactly one power. I'm never going back here again, and I wish grappling technique was a basic power. It is not, so we're going into martial arts, and I'm grabbing grappling technique. Grappling technique is a power that says when you make a grab action, you can also do melee damage. That's it. That's all that it says. You make the action check as normal, but upon a success, you are going to do damage as well as grab the target. This is a pretty boring power until you realize that we can layer it with the trait for this rank, which is signature attack. So we are taking signature attack for the second time, and we're doing it so that we have an edge on our grapple checks. I actually don't care about the damage component here. I just want the edge on the grapple check. Now there's another way to boost this capacity, of course, and that's to copy the ability score of somebody with a high melee score earlier in the day and simply hold concentration. We're at rank 3, so this can be one of our 3 concentration powers, and we just hold it through a long portion of the day. That is totally doable for us. And then we would have a high melee score, and we would have the edge. And I really want this combination to work, so I am willing to put a power set, a power, and a trait into making sure that swipe power and eventually steal power actually works, because the grapple check is necessary to pull this whole thing off. The next power we're going to take is Discipline 2 for a 2 damage multiplier for ego-based attacks. That's nice. The next power I'm going to take is one that I've never used in a build before and have never talked about on this channel before, and that is Uncanny. Uncanny is the sturdy of focus, effectively. If you have these sturdy powers, you reduce the damage multiplier for anything that reduces health. Uncanny does the same thing, but it reduces the damage multiplier for anything that is going to reduce your focus. Why is this so powerful? It's powerful because you can still be targeted by a number of things that reduce focus rather than health. And your blink powers may not actually interact with things that reduce focus. If your focus is reduced on this character, you no longer have the ability to really do almost anything. This is a very focus-hungry character, and you simply cannot run out of focus. This is why we are maxing out focus from this point on in this character's career. And so we need to make sure that anything that reduces focus is going to not have a whole lot of purchase against us. Also remember with this character that you can do recovery checks for your focus by doing a vigilance roll. Just make sure that you know the rules for that before playing this character. During combat, we have a bunch we can do. We could be holding on to a boosted ability score for melee. We can do a grapple check to swipe a power from our enemy. We can use our movement to teleport away and then teleport teleport farther if we're targeted with an attack. We can dampen another power, or we could drop the ability score power concentration in order to be able to boost an ally's power. We have so much that we can do to completely shift the battlefield. This may be the best battlefield controller, not just in Marvel Multiverse, but in any game I've ever played in, because of your ability to completely debilitate your enemy while simultaneously boosting your ally. It's incredible. Let's go ahead and do point buy for rank 4. We're going to cap ego, vigilance, and resilience at a 7, and we're going to move melee up to a 3. This is going to give us defenses of 13 for melee and agility, and 17s for everything else. We are not going to be picking up any new power sets on this character. We're just going to get really, really deep into teleportation and power control, and that's going to start with shutdown powers. Shutdown powers is simply amazing. It costs 15 or more focus. It is a standard action and does require your concentration. But what happens is that we pick a target that is within 20 spaces of us. We make an ego check against them, and upon a success, we remove all of their powers. That's it. All of them. You reduce your enemy to a commoner for as long as you hold concentration. Now, this is 15 points of focus, or if you are shutting down a power that costs more than 15 points of focus, you have to pay the higher amount. I'd like to point out here that you can concentrate on a number of powers equal to your rank. So you can simply sit back 100 feet away from your enemies and over the course of 4 rounds of combat, shut down 4 enemies in a row and just remove them from the battlefield. They still have their ability scores, so they can still pummel people pretty hard, but they're not going to be doing nearly as much damage as they wanted. Next, we are going to take clone powers. Clone powers allows you to pick a target within 10 spaces and duplicate all of their powers. Like the ability to copy a single power before, the target does not need to be willing, and there is no roll necessary. You can see the biggest, baddest enemy and simply take everything and copy it for yourself. Much like other powers, we have to spend 15 points of focus or more if the top power that we are cloning costs more than 15 points of focus, and we do have to spend focus as normal to utilize these powers. But you get to just take everything from someone else and use it against them. Or if your allies need someone else to do the exact same stuff, if one particular technique is really effective, you can simply duplicate that entire technique. It's awesome. The next power we're going to take is Discipline 3. We now have a 3 damage multiplier for all attacks that use ego, which is great. The next power we're going to take is the capstone of the power control power set, and that is Steal Powers. We must do a melee check to be able to grab somebody. Upon them being grabbed, we can use an action or reaction in order to use Steal Powers. We make an ego check against our target that is grabbed, and upon a success, we remove all of their powers, reducing them to a commoner, and we steal all of them for ourselves. It's as simple as that. So this is the really debilitating version of being able to simply clone their powers. It costs 15 points of focus or more, depending on if the highest focus cost that you steal is larger than 15 points. And it does require our concentration. But this is simply a terrifying prospect on the battlefield. And if you pull this off, you are going to be a monster. It comes online here at rank 4, and we want it as early as possible. The last power we are taking at this rank is Teleport 1. We're taking this now as opposed to some other stuff that's honestly really good because I want the mobility. With Teleport 1, you are able to teleport inside of combat up to 10 times your rank in spaces away. Outside of combat, it is 100 times your rank in spaces away. Now you can do this with your action or your movement, which means that you can do some of your up-close stealing or swiping powers and then teleport a greater distance away, which is wonderful. Please note one aspect of the interaction, and that's the order of operations. When you actually utilize the Steal Powers power, you are utilizing it ideally as a reaction. If you were to grab somebody as your action and then wait for your next turn to use your action to steal the powers, you give them their turn to break free of the grapple. The more logical way to do things is to grab somebody, immediately use your reaction to steal the powers. But this means you cannot use teleport to get out of there immediately. Teleporting can be done with an action or movement, but not a reaction. And as a result, you can't hold your movement. So if you teleport in with your movement, grab somebody, steal their powers, that is awesome. They might still attack you right there, and you can't get away till your next turn. But you can teleport in and pull off your stealing powers combo. It's just not going to be useful to getting out right away. The trait we're going to take is signature attack. That's right, I'm taking it for a third time, but I need it for steal powers. Remember, with steal powers, this is my big shutdown move. Steal powers allows me to cripple an enemy, to significantly and almost permanently cripple an enemy. And if I can pull it off, the fight's just about over, but I need to have the edge on it. So we've boosted our ego as high as it can go. We have an edge on the melee check to be able to grapple them, but I need the edge on the ego check to steal the powers. Once I've done it, I don't have to roll that again unless I lose concentration. So yes, we are taking signature attack for a third time. All right, let's get into rank 5. We're going to cap resilience, vigilance, and ego at an 8, and we're going to bring melee to a 5. This is going to bring our melee and agility defenses to 15 and 18 for everything else. The first power we are going to take is Uncanny 2. This is a 2 damage reduction to anything that depletes our focus, which is really, really good. I'm not going to be able to get all the way to Uncanny 4 on this character, but there are 4 levels of it, just so that you know. The next power we're going to take is Boost Powers. Boost Powers is going to allow me to pick a target within 5 spaces and boost all of their powers. Not one, all of them. I wanted this at last rank and I just couldn't make it work, so we're going to take it here. This means that that character that we choose is going to have all of their powers with a range or a duration be doubled. All their powers get a +1 to the damage multiplier, and every power they use automatically benefits from a fantastic success upon a normal success. This costs 15 points of focus or more if the highest power being boosted has a cost higher than 15. If you wanted to lean this character into the support role more than the stealing powers role, you would move boost powers up to rank 4 rather than rank 5. That is the earliest you can take it. I'm thinking of this character more in the debilitating or battlefield control playstyle, but going support is an absolutely valid choice for this character. Next, we're going to take Teleport 2. Teleport 2 is wonderful. It just is a non-combat power, so I did delay it. It means that now your teleportation ability outside of combat is 1,000 spaces per your rank. So 5,000 spaces away, which is 25,000 feet. You can teleport insane distances. It's awesome. The next power we are going to take is Teleport Object. You touch an object and you and the object teleport to anywhere that your teleport abilities can take you, which, as we just said, right now is out of combat 25,000 feet away, so you can move insane distances. This is the best way to steal something in the game. End of story. What's also really fun about this is the size interaction. You can teleport an object that is up to your rank in sizes bigger than you are. So you are an average sized character in almost all circumstances, and for this build in particular you are, and that means that you could touch an airliner and send it a couple thousand feet away. That's pretty cool. The next power we're going to take is Discipline 4, so you have a 4 damage multiplier for all ego-based attacks and a +4 to all of your ego checks that are made outside of combat. The trait we're taking at this rank is Battle Ready. Battle Ready just gives you 30 more points of focus to play with. That's fantastic. We are going to need it. Let's go ahead and finish up this character. We're going to bring our resilience, vigilance, and our ego to a 9, and we're going to bring melee to a 7. So melee ends up at a relatively reasonable place, but we've probably been stealing our melee ability score for most of our career. We are going to have defenses of 17 for melee and agility, and 19 for resilience, vigilance, ego, and logic. At this rank, I'm going to be taking a lot of the teleportation abilities that I just love and are going to give a lot of utility to the character. These are the things I wanted to take earlier, but I prioritized the power control power set. So there's going to be a lot of teleportation here. If you wanted to go ahead and boost up your martial arts ability, you certainly can. Another way to go is to take fewer teleportation abilities and use those powers, or what would have been powers, to boost your ability scores and potentially boost your melee all the way to a 9. That's valid as well. But we are going to start with Teleport Blind. We are now able to teleport to a place we have not seen. Everything else that we've been doing must be a place we have seen before or can currently see in the case of Blink. But with Teleport Blind, you can teleport to a place you have not seen before up to 100 times your rank in spaces away if it's out of combat, or 10 times your rank in spaces away if you are in combat. If you teleport into something solid, there is some damage associated, but in the end, you can use this to save your life. Next, we're going to take Teleport Together. You grab a person's hand and teleport with them. You can go the same distances from Teleport Object, but this can also be used against somebody that is not willing. If somebody is not willing, then you have to grab them first. There's that grab and use a reaction verbiage again, but you can use your action to grab somebody and use your reaction to teleport together into a prison cell and then teleport out. That's pretty cool. Next, we are going to take Teleportal. It's exactly what it sounds like. You create a portal that connects two places in space. One's right in front of you. The other one needs to be a place that you have seen before. But once you have connected these two, people can, or objects, can pass between these two spaces without difficulty. In combat, you can make this portal connect to a space you have seen that is up to 10 times your rank in spaces away. So for us, that is 60 spaces, which is going to be 300 feet. That's not bad. Outside of combat, it is 1,000 times your rank in spaces away, and that's enormous, right? You connect these two regions together, and anything can pass in between these two regions of space through the portal as long as you keep the portal open. It requires your concentration, but you can drop concentration at will. The last power we're going to take is Blink Barrage. If I was building a teleportation-centered character, I would have taken this much earlier. As it is, this is a little bit of a filler power, but this is something that you can use your action or movement for, not reaction. You teleport away as far as your normal blink power allows, and upon doing so, you also will impose trouble on any attacks made against you until your next round of combat. This doesn't have a whole lot of utility for us, but being able to use your movement for it is pretty cool. I de-emphasized it in order to pick up other powers earlier. If you thought that this would be particularly great to impose trouble on your enemies, you could pick it up much earlier. And as for our trait for this rank, I know you think I'm going to take Signature Attack again just to be silly, but in fact, I don't have a recommendation. Pick something that seems flavorful for you. So this is going to be Taster's Choice. Final thoughts. I love this character. This character is always going to do something different, always going to do something interesting, is going to be able to punch way above his or her weight class by being able to steal powers from more powerful enemies, and is just really going to have a lot of utility. We'll be able to copy the abilities we need to be able to be effective during a non-combat scenario, which means you're going to have the skill checks necessary. We're going to be able to teleport at least short distances early on, and I put teleportation 1 in as early as I could feasibly. And you're going to just be able to grow and have a lot of fun. And the number of play styles is incredible. If you want to be the best support character that's out there, here you go. The ability to start boosting and bumping powers and do this simultaneously, because of the way concentration works in Marvel Multiverse, means all of your allies are going to just get better and better and better at the things that they do, and your team is going to enjoy fantastic successes more often than any other team in Marvel Multiverse. It's incredible. If you want to play a Battlefield controller, you're amazing at that too. You can steal and swipe powers, you can dampen them, and just shut down an enemy. The ability at range to take an enemy and just turn off everything they can do except for just the raw physical output of either their agility or their melee attacks is incredible. And of course, you will have the problem-solving capacity of somebody who can steal useful powers and can teleport. This is an advanced build, I would argue, because you need to be able to adapt to new powers all the time. And the ability to expend your focus wisely is also essential. You have to be able to grab a new power and utilize it fast on the battlefield. And knowing if you should be bumping a power or dampening a power or trying to swipe a power and how you should manage your concentration is not easy. On top of that, there's no damage reduction on this character at all. And as a result, there's a little bit of a glass cannon phenomenon. You need to use your positioning and your teleportation effectively to stay out of the line of fire if you can help it. Because if you get into a position where you can't teleport away, you're gonna go down relatively fast. We got a lot of hit points on this character, but in the end, you don't have the damage reduction to make that last. You have to rely on teamwork. And that's the last thing that's difficult about this character. He does not operate in a vacuum. He or she absolutely relies on the team around him or her to be as good as possible. And at early stages in the game, you don't do damage. The dampened powers power is fantastic, but it doesn't do damage to your enemy. So this character needs to be in a party with heavy-hitting damage dealers. And the more heavy-hitting damage dealers you have around you that you can boost and bump, the better off you're gonna be and the better they're gonna feel, because they're gonna be getting a fantastic success all the time. There is an alternative version of this character that uses the tactics power set in order to be the single best support character in the game. I might make that one day because I think it'd be phenomenal, but I wanted to build something that was a little scarier, that utilized the really terrifying shutdown power of the power control power set, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Anyway, if I get to play a new character in this game anytime soon, this is the one I'm going to play. YouTube's literally made out of buttons. I hope you press some of them. I'll see you next time. All right, peace.